call the regular meeting for the Village of Tinley Park Plan Commission to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Secretary, if you could please take roll call at this time.
Stanton.
Here.
Engel. Manny. Gatto. Fielder. Gaskell.
Here.
Aitchison.
Here.
Vic.
Here.
Gray.
Here. A quorum is present. Staff, are there any communications at this time? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the November 7th, 2019 meeting? Motion made by Commissioner Gaskell. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Aitchison. All those in favor of approving the November 7th, 2019 minutes say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to item 1. The first item on the agenda this evening is a public hearing to discuss an amendment to the North Creek Business Park planned unit development, a special use for a substantial deviation, site plan approval, and a plat of re-subdivision for the Lenny's Food and Fuel located at 7401 to 7451 183rd Street. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Commissioner Stanton?
Second.
Commissioner Vic seconded. At this point, I need to swear in anybody who will be testifying at the public hearing. So if any petitioners could stand and raise their right hand. And just repeat the following. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence that you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, great. You can sit down. Staff, at this time, if you can please make your presentation on this item.
Sure. So, yeah, this is the public hearing, the continuation from the workshop a couple weeks ago for the Lenny's Food and Fuel on 183rd Street. We had a pretty hearty description and discussion, I think, at the workshop. I know not everyone was there, but I'm gonna try and just kind of hit the major points of this, and then some of the open items and how they have addressed those. So the site is located in the North Creek Business Park on 183rd and Harlem. The majority of that. It's zoned ORI PD, so office and restricted industrial, and in that North Creek Business Park PUD that was originally approved in 1991. It was predominantly ORI, or it was entirely ORI zoning at that time, and then they kind of came back in 1995 and decided along Harlem was kind of better geared towards kind of the B3 business, general business type uses. So they came in and kind of rezoned part of it as B3. It's always had allowed some kind of B3 and general business uses in that office and restricted industrial zoning. So hotels were always allowed, daycares, theaters. So it's always kind of been that kind of mixed use, not just office, industrial, but also some commercial. It's also located in the Urban Design Overlay District, which is a district that kind of promotes walkability, urban, kind of those classic planning and urban design type things like pushing parking to the back, walkability, things like that. In this case, it'll come up because they have some exceptions to that Urban Design Overlay District. We try to meet that intent as much as possible, but to some degree, the surrounding development that's occurred out there, as well as the use itself, which is an auto-oriented use, kind of makes meeting those standards easily when you have something that's intended for auto use to make it walkable. But we have done some things there to, I think, meet the intent. Also out here on that hard corner of 100, the southwest corner of 183rd and Harlem is the Speedway that's out there, so the other gas station in the area. This will be 2 parcels and then take a sliver of a 3rd parcel, so those are the 3 kind of shown on your screen with stars out there. And the reason why this site was picked, and I kind of won't speak for the petitioner, but I think one of their strongest points is it's in Will County, and for competition purposes, if they were gonna be on one of the other corners, would be difficult to kind of compete with Speedway. So this is kind of that last spot out here that I think the gas station could really work. Here's the location of the site, and then there's vacant parcel to the south. To the west of this is kind of light industrial, office type buildings, flex space buildings. To the east of it is Hamada, and then kind of to the southeast is the Holiday Inn site that came before you about a month or 2 ago, and recently got approval from the village board, so that'll be a full-service Holiday Inn on that parcel. And then to the west of that's Buffalo Wild Wings and Pops, and then to the west of that's Wendy's and the Speedway site. So here's just showing you what the site's gonna look like in the end. So a gas station, it'll have truck lanes, as well as a 9,100 square foot convenience store that's going to have a drive-through Dunkin' Donuts, as well as a second food vendor in there. Kind of yet to be determined, but there'll be a second one in there as well. So, and then your typical retail items, as well as a gaming area is intended in there. This is on a 3-acre lot. There's 18 vehicle fueling stations outside. There's 3 truck fueling stations, so that's a correction from what I was saying before for 4 truck fueling stations. Just because of the way trucks fuel, they need pumps on both sides. They usually have tanks on both sides, so it kind of looks like there's 4 if it was traditional vehicles, but there'll be 3 truck fueling stations there. And again, this is gonna be similar to, there's a food and fuel with a car wash that was added afterwards on Harlem that was before you guys as well for annexation. That's on Harlem, that was recently annexed. And then there's also 191st in Mokina is a gas and wash that's gonna be very similar. There's another one on LaGrange in Mokina, and they've kind of been popping up all over the place. So this is gonna be right in line with what you kind of see with those locations. There's just kind of the floor plan layout, kind of hard to mix, but a retail area, service counter, a couple food service areas, tables will be in there. So the site plan layout, so again, there's the fueling stations for the truck on the east of the site, the main vehicle fueling stations to the north of the site, and then the convenience store kind of there to the south in the center of the site with the Dunkin' Donuts drive-through wrapping around the back and then to the east. There's site access on 183rd Street. So one of the open items from the last meeting was that they had proposed originally a full access there. We had some concerns. We also thought, it's highly likely based on previous projects we had, Cook County Food Controls, 183rd would have issues with that, just due to the proximity to 2 other full access points that are out there. So they did agree to change that, and they've shown that on the plan. So it's a right in, right out, limited access on 183rd. They do have full access, though, available to the west. Another curb cut that goes out to West Creek Drive, that's full access there. They have sidewalks, a public sidewalk that will run around the site. Sidewalk connections kind of limited in this area, but this will tie their sidewalks to the west, and we're trying to work to get them at least on 183rd. And we've talked about it with Holiday Inn too, and it's kind of a shame this area doesn't have sidewalks since it's a little, there's hotels, there's restaurants, it's a little more touristy. So, and even for the office tenants to be able to walk through there. Again, there's just kind of that overall layout of the site with the parking, the gas station. Parking-wise, this is a fairly unique use, so it's kind of hard to apply our traditional zoning code to this because it's kind of not something we typically have. You have gas stations, but they usually don't have full food service inside. This runs a little more popular, I think, than what you see. But we did try and break it down just kind of based on those uses that are within this to say, give us some kind of guidance in terms of what kind of parking might be needed out there. And our zoning code, even by itself, sometimes isn't the best even when it does align. So sometimes it tends to overestimate the amount of parking needed. Sometimes it does underestimate. So we rely a little bit more on them to give us a parking study, which they did do, and they updated, was in your packet this time, from KLOA, who's their traffic consultant, just to, they have other sites like this, and I think that's a better representation in terms of what kind of parking we're gonna see here, since we have known sites out there that function like this, we wanted some hard data on those, and they added that into the report as well. So Michael gave a presentation at the workshop, but if you guys have any other questions about that traffic report, I think he can maybe answer it for you, as well as for the trucks. I know they're expecting there will be some increased truck traffic, but fairly minimal in terms of how many come there throughout the day and if they really stay there or not. So I know the one on Harlem, we did counts on, and it was just kind of one to two trucks that were there at almost any given time, with just kind of one time where it was a little bit busier. But the total parking spaces out there that we estimated were kind of needed by our zoning code was 68, and they proposed 68 on this site. That well exceeds almost any of the other gas and washer food and fuels in the area, including New Lenox, the Mokina, and the one that we annexed on Harlem. So we're fairly confident that 68 spaces will be sufficient out here, especially with there's no car wash. There's no vacuum stations or anything like that. It's pure, just traditional parking out there, and that's not counting the fueling stations at all in that count. So in some way, when we break out those counts, you have people that do, again, multiple things. They're gonna go get gas, and then they're gonna go get food, and they're kind of use both uses at once. So I think you get some spillover there. The drive-through side of this, we had them add a little bit more counts in terms of the other sites that they had. The other there's a Dunkin' Donuts at almost every gas and washer, food and fuel, so we had them bring some hard data into that. This site has 10 stacking lanes. Most codes kind of require 5, 6, 7. But Dunkin' Donuts is getting a little more popular. They are expanding their menu a little bit, so we want to make sure we have sufficient stacking availability there. The other sites that they looked at, the maximum and the usual amount they have is 8. So here they're going to have 10, and we think that'll be sufficient for the stacking. We are a little bit going to look into, and maybe with the permit, where exactly the menu board is going to be. Because that could change, one more stacking spot for people waiting for coffee or one more ordering, but we'll look at that when the permit comes in, exactly where that menu board is placed. The landscaping side of this, so there was a couple waivers that we talked about at the workshop. The biggest one is kind of the north buffer yard, which is fairly unique because typically they'd have to put in parkway trees as well as trees in their buffer yard. So it doesn't really discount trees in the parkway. So there'd be twice as many trees out here, and if they were gonna meet that, it really would block almost all visibility to the gas station. We want a good landscape site, but I think in some ways our landscape code can be a little over-ambitious depending on the situation and location. I think that's kind of what happened here, but they did meet it as close as they could. They got shrubs and the understory trees. They're just a little bit short on the kind of canopy trees you see, but it's gonna blend into what's out there. It kind of matches what's out there right now next to Hamada and, but the Buffalo Wild Wings Shopping Center, and it'll probably be the best landscaped out there, but probably in competition with Holiday Inn, because they both came very close to meeting the code. They were a little short on the east buffer yard as well with landscaping, and they've resolved that. We're able to update the plan to fit in what they needed to there. And then the last waiver they had for landscaping was the interior parking lot landscaping, which no one really brought up concerns with that at the workshop, but it's hard to meet on a gas station site where the entire fueling area is counted as a parking lot, so it's hard to install landscaping into a fueling area. So if you discount that out of it, it really it comes a lot closer to meeting the landscape code. So there's the plan that they had. Architectural wise, this is kind of one of the biggest changes they've made from the workshop meeting. Is we kind of caught, or I'll say Paula caught it during the meeting, that they were a little bit short on the brick percentage or the masonry percentage on this. So they were able to, the front was a little bit of ephes area, but there's no signage really going on that front area. So they were able to convert it to brick. And then they brought up the stone on the pillars as well in the front to kind of break up that brick. So those were kind of two suggestions we gave them, and then to maybe use a lighter brick on that, on part of it, and they've taken both those suggestions and incorporated it into the plan. So now it exceeds that 75% face brick percentage. And then they have matching enclosures and a maintenance shed on site that kind of meet that same brick, same stone on the base. That I think looks pretty good for a gas station building. And then we have, again, the renderings for the site are updated. The only thing that's not updated on these now is that brick. So you can kind of see the lighter white area in there. That's now brick, and they are gonna do like a lighter toned brick in there than the rest of the building. But everything else has been updated on these renderings now. So. Signage-wise, they meet our sign code for the canopy signage, the wall signage. They have some. The ground sign has a LED message center display. It's the right size in terms of the percentage of the overall sign. And then they have their food and fuel and their two other tenants. Some directional signage that they have placed on the site plan that I think are at decision points that make sense. So we like limiting directional signs kind of to areas where they work best, and I think they've done that. The lighting side, we have a new lighting ordinance in effect, and that you guys approved 3 months ago, I believe. That kind of requires everything to be downcast, full cutoff, so there's no glare out in the roadway or anything. So they've accomplished that here with the lights they've chosen. They've also gotten the foot candles, so there's not a lot of light spillage off the site. So there's not they're not residential around this, but it is still, we don't want kind of light or glare spilling into the street or onto other sites. So. For their special so the approvals they have in this are site plan, but then there's also a need to add a gas station, or as our code calls it, automobile service station. A little bit more of a throwback there in the definition, but there's a need to add that in as a permitted use in this PUD. So right now, it's not allowed in the list that has a bunch of extra uses that are typical B3 uses, and it's not allowed in the underlying ORI. So we thought about possibly rezoning it as a B3 underlying zoning, because it is directly next to the B3 zoning, or with Hamada's technically an ORI too, and that's a restaurant. So it just kind of made sense to possibly continue that B3 zoning down but we kind of thought the simplest or easiest route was just to add this as a permitted use and on this site only. So there's a couple other vacant sites left in there. They wouldn't be allowed to do, to do a gas station. This also kind of benefits it as a special use usually doesn't transfer owners. So someone might need to come back if this was sold to a different gas station. This kind of makes it a permitted use. It's being built out as a gas station, so we just want it to kind of be a permitted use there, so it can be transferred in the future. So that request is kind of amending the original PUD ordinance to allow. Separate from that, then, there's a special use that they're asking for. The majority of that are exceptions from that urban overlay district, as well as a couple from the PUD regulations. So parking in the front yards typically not permitted in both the urban overlay and the PUD, just because they wanted a little more urban feel to it. But again, with the gas station, it's kind of hard to make that happen unless you're gonna push the whole canopy to the back. And then they don't quite get the access and the feel that they want to draw people into the gas station, so. Cross-access, so they eliminated one of the exceptions, because cross-access was included to the vacant property that's to the south of this. So there's one more vacant property that connects to this, and they included, cross-access. Whether that makes sense or not, we can determine kind of when that property comes in. So if it's an office building, they may not want that, they may not want the traffic. And then there's cross-access to the east as well, to the Hamada site, that's already built into the Hamada site, and then it'll be here. If you go back to the site plan, trucks won't go out to the east on this. They won't go to the east, into the Hamada site. There'll be a no truck access, on both Hamada's property and then on this site. So trucks will mainly go to West Creek Drive, but if you're just a passenger vehicle, you'd be able to go on a North Creek Drive where Hamada's at, and then drive through. There's a drive aisle through there that would connect to this property. So. And that the cross-access always kind of helps avoid the number of curb cuts that we have on our streets. So. Then lastly, I think I forgot the plat on here again, like I did last time, but there's the final plat of subdivisions in your property. That is consolidating the two lots that are there along 183rd Street, and then it is also taking a very small sliver, just over 100 square feet, from the vacant property to the south. That's gonna make this 3 acres. That's a requirement to get gaming at the state, and they obviously wanna have that ability to get it. So they're taking a small sliver from that and consolidating the other 2 parcels. On top of that, the plat carries over all the existing utility easements. It adds the cross-access easements to the west and the south. And then it also adds a sidewalk easement. Some of the public sidewalk will go onto their private property. So there's a sidewalk easement for that as well. Besides that, I think they've taken care of the open items that we kind of talked about. The last thing, and the thing that I think was discussed most at the workshop meeting was, the possibility of a light somewhere out here, either on West Creek or North Creek Drive. West Creek still is, talking to our engineer, that's where a light would be, is on West Creek Drive. We've talked with the county, and we've talked with the state and how this would connect with the Harlem light before. It really hasn't gone anywhere because there hasn't been the traffic counts or the stacking that is required on one of those streets to get it. Obviously, this is gonna be somewhat of a draw. We also have 2 hotels that were built since the last time we talked to them, so the engineer's gonna talk to Cook County again and try and get the ball rolling into seeing if they can look into it. A lot of times that takes a long time though, so he's also gonna bring this up in terms of, can we pay and do the study and see if it's there? or maybe do some kind of initial counts to see if it meets the standards that we need. And I think it would be good, like we talked, for kind of just to allow some space for the trucks and time for the trucks to get out. So our engineer's looking into that, kind of reopening that up with Cook County. Other than that, it's better out there now than it was 2 weeks ago. So with the stacking from Harlem, they did the pavement on Harlem, so it was kind of tough to go out there and see what it was like in a normal situation, because people drove so slow over Harlem Avenue, it backed stuff up on 183rd. So there's still traffic that's there, and our engineer has also said that they're likely looking into the timing there again. So they replaced a lot of the sensors for the roads and for the stoplights. So he said typically IDOT comes out and kind of recalibrates those and does some timing to make sure the lane's clear. So they'll make sure 183rd basically all the backed up traffic should be able to clear out of there, but in one light cycle. So he said they typically come out and do that, but I think they're doing the final striping right now, and then hopefully they'll be out after that. And that intersection will be at least a little bit better. So I think that's it for our staff report, so back to
Okay.
you guys.
Thank you, Dan.
Yep.
At this time, I'll ask the commissioners if they have any comments or discussion. I'll start with Commissioner Stanton.
No, I mean, this is, it's perfect, actually. I mean, you can't say that, been a lot of work put into it, and staff's done a great job, and I think this is just another, great thing to have for Tinley, and, wish you the best of luck.
Okay. Commissioner Fielder.
Ditto.
Commissioner Aitchison.
Triple that.
Commissioner Gaskell.
I'm satisfied with the presentation, yes.
Okay. Commissioner Vick.
I'm good.
Okay. At this time, I would like to ask the petitioner if you would like to speak or have some of your representatives present at this time.
Yes, thank you. My name is Lyman Teeman. I'm the attorney for Len McHenry, who is the developer and will be the owner of the property once we get everything put together and closed. I'm not going to belabor everything. Dan went through a very detailed presentation. I think that we covered everything that came out in question form at the workshop meeting a couple weeks ago. Hopefully we did. If you have any additional questions, we brought our civil engineer, our architect, our traffic consultant, along with Mr. McHenry to the meeting this evening. So we'd be more than happy to address any additional questions you may have. But I believe our group has been working back and forth with Dan for the last 2 weeks, and I think that we've covered everything that came up by way of a question at the workshop meeting. But if you have additional questions, we'd be happy to address them. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Teeman. At this time, I'd like to ask if there's anybody in the audience wishing to testify on this item. Seeing none, I'm going to ask the commissioners, again, if they have any further comments. Okay, no, and I do have a couple. I caught up to snuff. I watched the last meeting on the YouTube channel. I do have a question for Mike for KLOA. It's not to do with the traffic on 183rd, but with the traffic within the gas station itself for that entrance exit on that northeast corner off of 183rd. Yeah, which is what Dan is showing or staff is showing right now. My one concern was I know they're 18-foot wide lanes, and in the staff report it mentions how, and I've experienced this too, how just a few doors down at the speedway, it's like a madhouse. Sometimes you can't even get a pump at peak flow, at peak hours.
Right.
If I am coming eastbound on 183rd and I turn and I go to, say, that first easternmost pump, and then I want to come and turn out again, I'm going to be going against the incoming. It seems like that area has a potential for a nightmare traffic flow scenario. I think a lot of people that pull out of those pumps will probably head north and east, possibly. Did you guys look into the interior flow of the traffic?
Yeah, we did. Just so I understand you, you're talking at the right in, right out,
Yes, correct.
and the proximity of the pumps and them turning around.
Yeah,
This is a lot like your, the one on Cedar, yeah, 6 and Cedar, where you got the right in, right out, right where the pumps are.
okay.
And one thing we have going for us, the right in, right out, the majority of the traffic's gonna be coming in on the west drive. Typically,
Okay.
most people come in that first drive instead of the right in, right out, so that will help us. Now that it's not a full access drive, it will help us too, because you won't have the queuing that you may have had if someone was going left. But I think it will function fine.
Okay.
People know in a gas station, there's a number of movements. You have the trucks coming out on the, from the south there, but we're not expecting a whole lot of trucks. And the main thing is, there's a lot of good sight lines you can see as you're pulling around, and what, you know, you'll be able to see everyone. And when you come around that corner from 183rd, those are pretty tight turns, so you have to make those about, 5-10 miles an hour. So as you're coming around there, you'll be able to see if someone's coming around and pulling out.
Okay. Yeah, because.
Great question, though.
And the reason being is, it is a madhouse at that speedway, and I figure this will get bang-up business just like them. It would probably take away some of the business,
Yeah.
which is fine, because I think there's gonna be a lot more businesses that need gasoline, and you
Right.
don't wanna wait at the pump. And,
And I would say that Speedway is above and beyond. I
It's-
think it's one of the busiest.
in the nation is what the staff report said. That's
Yeah.
why my concern for that right in, right out. In addition to that, then you have the crosswalk there. And I think there might be a little bit of a safety issue there. I do appreciate the fact that you guys went above and beyond with the sidewalks. I like that. I know the former chair, Ken Shaw, was always big about connecting walkways. I think it's a good idea. I don't know if it's a great idea right across that, but, maybe they have to go further south like you have it to go west. But I just want to be on record noting that I just think that could be a potential trouble spot.
The crosswalk.
Yeah, for pedestrians in that right in,
In
right
the
out.
right in, right out.
Yeah, I'm assuming a similar model to Speedway. However, if your study says it's coming more from the west than the east, or from the east going west versus west going east, I can buy that. So they'd be coming off of the West Creek Drive.
I will say about the crosswalk, that is common that you find along any driveway, any road. It's usually, right along the property line or the right-of-way line. Good drivers, most drivers are aware that pedestrians are crossing the road. The one thing with the right in, right out, they will have a refuge area in between, so as they cross, they can stop and make sure. And once again, you can only make that turn so fast, and the sight lines are great too. So there's not a whole lot of trees in the way, any of that, so it's common, you see it all over the place. Once again, it's a concern, but I think most people understand it, and it should function fine.
It's one reason why we like the raised medians there too, is that sometimes they try and just stripe that out, and that can have people take the turns quicker. But there's not much else you can do if you want a sidewalk on 183rd or LaGrange for that matter, Route, Harlem even, if you want a sidewalk and you want to have commercial, at some point there's got to be a crosswalk. But I think the raised median and then the islands in general here kind of help traffic flow, where Speedway is a terrible example, and it's just open, it's undefined pavement throughout the site. So when you put in curbs and you put in landscaping, it really helps kind of slow people down, where Speedway, you can drive through parking stalls, if they're parking stalls, or whatever else is out there. There's not really any kind of islands when you enter, and there's not really any kind of curb delineage throughout it. So I think this will end up functioning much better than Speedway, just because of the flow they have set up here, where Speedway's just open.
Okay,
It's an old school design.
Yeah. And that's how, and that's how they were. And honestly, that Speedway could be worse, as you see some of the old gas stations, both frontages are entirely open as a curb cut, which is you get a lot of random turning movements and competing turning movements, where this one's pretty limited, so.
Okay, excellent. And I do agree with the, the variation on the landscaping, the functionality of a gas station. You do want to protect the environment from any fuel spills. So, thanks again, Mike. I do appreciate that.
Thank you.
Oh, actually, I do have one more question regarding the stacking. I know it was 2+, and what was the reasoning behind the added cars instead of the 8 as a typical being okay on this one?
I think we have 10 because we can fit 10.
Okay.
So, it's going
6
around
and
the
4,
building, so, more is better. But typically, Len has 8, maybe 10 at some other stores. We surveyed the Dunkin' on Len's store on Harlem. I think we had a max of 8 once, 7 3 other times. So really, it's a function of how much we could put in there, and 10 is great because we're getting 2 more than we typically get.
Yeah, I understand. You want to get customers in and out, and as long as you got the area to do it, it's fine. Okay, just wanted to get some reasoning behind that. Thanks
you.
again, Mike. I appreciate your thoroughness.
And like he explained too in the last meeting, was some of it's the operator there, and if for some reason there are issues with drive-throughs, we usually go talk to them about the stacking it, because some of it's, how fast do they do service and orders there.
Right.
So we always are kind of cognizant of that if we get complaints about drive-through spilling somewhere where they shouldn't, so.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. With that, do any other commissioners have any other comments at this time? Okay, if there are no other questions or discussions, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So,
Commissioner Stanton?
Second.
Commissioner Gaskell seconded the motion. Staff, if you can please go through the standards at this time?
Sure, I'm gonna summarize them for you, because they're on the screen and then in the packets, and I don't think anyone wants to hear me read these off, so, basically, it's not detrimental to any public safety, morals, welfare. It's a gas station convenience stores that'll be used by the community, by visitors. It's meeting our current building codes and compliant, and meets kind of the surrounding properties and those uses. It's not injurious to any of the surrounding properties. The special use specifically kind of meets the intent of what's out there in the North Creek Business Park, as well as kind of the surrounding area. The site's going to be well landscaped, again, meet our codes for the most part, definitely meet all our building codes, and then use quality materials. It's not going to impede any surrounding development on any of the surrounding properties. There's landscape buffers, and then there's cross-access to those surrounding properties as well to kind of help them develop. There's already existing utilities, roads. They have an existing detention pond out there they're using. And there's kind of already existing facilities in place there. The ingress and egress, we talked quite a bit about that. They'll have 2 curb cuts that'll function well to kind of get vehicles and trucks in and out of the site. There's also public and private walkways throughout the site that are interconnected.
That's right.
Again, it conforms with most of the applicable regulations of the PUD, with just a few that kind of meet what's kind of set out there, with the exception of the maximum of 1 curb cut. And again, in this situation, they're combining 2 lots. And then in terms of economic development, I think this will definitely help out there. There's fuel, retail, food services for visitors, residents, provides additional jobs, property tax and sales tax revenue that's not being generated right now. So I think that's a big impact there as well. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Dan. At this time, I'd like to request motions for this item, we have 4 motions, so beginning with motion 1, I'd like to request a motion for approval from the Plan Commissioners one of the plan commissioners?
I'll make a motion to grant the petitioner Lenny's Food and Fuel, 183rd Street LLC, site plan approval to construct an automobile service gas station and a 9,100 square foot convenience store building at 7451 183rd Street in the ORIPD Office and Restricted Industrial North Creek Business Park PUD zoning district in accordance with the plans submitted and listed herein and subject to the following conditions. 1, any changes in drive-through or parking demand from what was presented would require new traffic or drive-through analysis and prior approval to ensure the on-site drive-through stacking and parking is sufficient. 2, site plan approval is subject to final engineering review and approval. 3, site plan approval is subject to approval of the PUD ordinance amendment, special use for substantial deviation, the PUD, and final plat approval.
Motion made by Commissioner Fielder. Can I get a seconded? Motion seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. Can I have a roll call?
Stanton?
Yes.
Fielder?
Yes.
Gaskell?
Yes.
Aitchison?
Yes.
Vic?
Yes.
Jim Gray?
Yes. Motion carries. At this time, I'd like to request another motion for approval from the plan commissioners.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend that the village board amend section 4-A, an ordinance 91-0-083. Special use for North Creek Business Park PUD at the request of Lenny's Food and Fuel at 183rd Street LLC to permit an automobile service gas station with a convenience store as permitted use on Lot 1 of the North Creek Food and Fuel re-subdivision.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Stanton. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Commissioner Aitchison seconded. And now could I have a roll call?
Vic?
Yes.
Aitchison?
Yes.
Gaskell?
Yes.
Fielder?
Yes.
Stanton?
Yes.
Chairman Gray?
Yes. Motion carries. At this time, I would like to request another motion for approval from the Plan Commission.
I'll make a motion to recommend that the village board grant a special use permit for a substantial deviation from the North Creek Business Park PUD and exceptions from the zoning ordinance, including reduced front yard setback, parking location, and number of curb cuts to the petitioner, Lenny's Food and Fuel, 183rd Street LLC, to permit an automobile service gas station and a 9,100 square foot convenience store on the property located at 7451 183rd Street in the ORIPD Office and Restricted Industrial North Creek Business Park PUD zoning district, in accordance with the plan submitted and listed herein and adopted findings of facts as proposed by the village staff in the staff report, subject to the following condition. Any changes in drive-through or parking demand from what was presented will require new traffic or drive-through study analysis and prior approval to ensure the on-site drive-through stacking and parking is sufficient.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Fielder. Do I have a second?
Second.
I heard Commissioner Vick with seconding that motion. At this time, I'd like to request a roll call.
Stanton?
Yes.
Fielder?
Yes.
Gaskell?
Yes.
Aitchison?
Yes.
Vic?
Yes.
Chairman Gray?
Yes. Motion carries. At this time, I'd like to request another motion for approval from the Plan Commission.
The final one, I'll make a motion to recommend that the village board grant approval to the petitioner, Lenny's Food and Fuel, 183rd Street LLC. Final plat approval for North Creek Food and Fuel re-subdivision in accordance with the final plat submitted and listed herein, subject to the following condition, that the final plat approval is subject to final engineering approval by the village engineer.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Fielder and seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. At this time, could I have a roll call?
Vic?
Yes.
Aitchison?
Yes.
Gaskell?
Yes.
Stanton?
Yes.
Fielder?
Yes.
Chairman Gray?
Yes. Okay, all four items were approved for this item. So, Mr. McHenry, this item will be heard by the village board on December 3rd, 2019, here in Village Hall. So,
Thank you
okay. Yeah, thank you for your time, gentlemen.
Yeah, it'll just be one, it should just be one reading on that December 3rd date, so it's up to you guys. I don't know if you need to bring your whole team to that. I think you've done it before. They usually don't have too many questions there or anything, but it'll just be the one meeting.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now we'll move on to item number 2. The second item on the agenda this evening is a public hearing to discuss a zoning code text amendment for masonry and exterior building requirements. May I have a motion to open up the public hearing?
So moved.
Commissioner Vick? Do I hear?
Second.
Commissioner Aitchison seconded the motion. I have confirmation of the public notices being completed. Staff, please make your presentation at this time.
Yes, we did have a thorough workshop on this, so I'm gonna sort of just bring you into the highlights, explain how we got here and why we're even addressing this. We are in the midst of updating our building code, and as part of that, our masonry requirements are in the building code now, which is really not the norm or the standard industry, because it's really about, regulating aesthetics. And the building code should be, relegated more to structural regulations and, ICC and so forth. So, even though traditionally that's where it was, and it certainly has served its purpose, it's our desire to bring them out of the building code, bring them into the zoning code. As doing that, every time we touch something, we have to make sure it's right on. So we start looking at the code as it stands now, and comparing it to other communities, comparing it to the industry standards. And one of the things that we felt in looking at the code is that the masonry requirement, especially for large industrial structures, is sort of out of whack with what we see in the industry. You can drive along any other major commercial corridors and notice that those large industrial distribution buildings are tilt-up, precast concrete, and you don't see face brick in these buildings. And then you certainly don't see that in our community as well. So we wanted to take an opportunity to take a look at that and make sure that we were working in tandem with our economic development initiatives and make sure we were competitive. So, I think in your staff report, you'll see that, I give you kind of a quick look at how that came to be, the code came to be. There were some updates, in 2007, that got us to where we are now. And we've certainly enjoyed, the results of that. I think our community exhibits a quality community with the brick requirements on our residences and on our commercial as well. Here's a couple of examples of where we required and received quality architecture as a consequence of the masonry requirements. Some deviations from that I think some of you on the commission were here would be Wood Springs Hotel, where there was a request for a deviation of that. They met the masonry requirement, but they didn't want the brick, and so they used the masons and the decorative stone to do that on the cedar siding, party board cedar siding, and I think this resulted in an attractive building, but it doesn't meet the letter of the law with respect to our code. And then you also have some existing industrial buildings, like out on Westbury Drive, the Millwood developments. One's a million square foot building, the other a little over 300,000. And obviously neither one of those have brick on them, and yet they're very attractive architecturally, and have done very well in terms of filling up their tenancy for these buildings. Same with Panduit, award-winning, beautiful LEED building. I enjoyed Dan's research in which their granite on the side. So it's beautiful and expensive building, but not with brick. Same with those. So, and then when we looked at other communities, we found there were similar guidelines to what we have for our commercial. And the only sort of additional thing that a lot of these communities do is they have design guidelines, and that helps guide the development beyond just doing a strict masonry requirement. We begin to look at, various architectural terms regarding balance and scale and articulation, and so we wanted to do that as well. And so that was helpful as we moved from the building code to the zoning code, that we enhanced what we're doing by developing some design guidelines. And what was interesting when we started polling these other communities, their code may also have been fairly restrictive like ours, but that's not what they're enforcing. They're providing waiver upon waiver, fairly large industrial development out in New Lenox with Cherry Creek, and none of those have brick on it. So I don't think we're doing anything that's going to be out of line with what we're seeing in the region, and certainly we want to be competitive, especially on the Cook County side. you have seen these on I-80 corridor, I-255 corridor, Lamont and Plainfield, again, attractive buildings. That's where the architectural guidelines are gonna help us, so that we don't just have large masses of tilt-up panels, and we do have some architectural detailing to them. So in all, what we're proposing with you tonight are 6 different amendments. Just I'll go through them quickly to explain how we're getting to where we are. The first was we never had a definition for masonry, and that was difficult for staff to enforce, because what does masonry include? So we did provide a good description that we felt was comprehensive and met the needs of our uses that we're going to see. So you still have a face brick, but you can also use decorative stone. Our tilt-up and Freemasonry walls also are going to be considered masonry, whether those have brick inlays or not. And then when we start looking at those precast concrete walls, we'll allow those and consider them masonry as long as they meet the architectural guidelines that we'll set, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So that kind of gives you an idea, those of you that aren't used to some of these architectural terms, that, split face block you see on the left, and on the right on the bottom, it's a smooth face block. It's not the typical CMUs that you might see in home foundations, but they have a little bit more architectural detail to them. Fluted concrete block is another that can be used for banding or soldier forcing around the window. And this is some of the precast, this is something that's only, not real recent, it's been around for a while, but they provide some economy to these large buildings. You still get the masonry look, but obviously there's much more cost effectiveness in these large wall spans. The only thing that I've had some concerns about, and actually the industry is getting better, is where those joint lines are, and the architectural guidelines address that, that we'll talk about a little bit later. So all these are precast concrete walls. These show some architectural detailing that I think end up with an attractive wall face. The second amendment that we're discussing, not only we just talked about the masonry makers guidelines, but is under the architectural and site design standards that we're going to include. Right now, we are under our site plan review powers, and just like this evening again, we do a site plan review. What we're recommending is what we add architectural review to that as well. Some communities will take this pretty far and have an architectural design review committee. I'm not espousing that. I think that does get complicated and sort of protracts our review process. I have confidence in existing and future staff, but with the guidelines, we can do a very good job of doing an architectural site plan review. We do bring them to planning commission when it has any kind of zoning aspect to it, so you get involved in that. You write these guidelines broad enough that it gives staff and the commission some flexibility, but particular enough that we're guiding the development in a certain way that will result in some quality. So, just real quickly, this shows what some of these standards are including. This describes some of the accent materials that we're allowing. Asking for a cohesive building design so that we're not just seeing a front facade, where it looks nice just on the street face, but that design is carried around on all 4 sides of the building. Compatible architecture, again, we want things to look, especially for commercial, that if it's in a strip center or something like that, that you're letting the outlots are compatible with the main center, like you might see on the Brookside Marketplace. This is a fun one. Color, I love legislating aesthetics. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Who was it? It was Kurt that really liked the bright color from last time. The top left one, but so it's just again, it's going to be hard to regulate. If we were trying to support a bright colored building for Kurt, we might do that in an isolated situation instead of a strip center. But
I get a children's museum, we'll have a lot of fun.
So, this was a fun one too. You have to look at sustainable architecture, not necessarily in terms of environment, but how will these buildings, this is really becoming important when you think of all the big box commercial and the brick and mortar issues that we're having. So we certainly need to really think ahead, how are these buildings gonna look later? So I'm glad we don't have the Longaberger basket building, which ironically, did something the other day that they're coming back and start making them again. So, it is an interesting building. Define entry, looking at the roof elements, we got some requirements in this, that there's certain size, structures, we don't wanna see a roof element, but when you're getting up to a large 1 million square foot building, you're not gonna put a roof on the top of that. Looking at articulation, that's providing some shadow lines and some moving in and out of the facades, making sure the mechanicals are screened, and making sure the traffic enclosures are screened. Site design, just making sure some of the things that Dan talked about this evening, we do have an overlay district, but we don't want parking to dominate the site. We like the landscaping of the building. We feel the building should be the best advertising for the business, so let's let that, let's show off our architecture rather than the seas of asphalt. Loading areas, outdoor storage areas, looking to keep those out of the face of the streetscape, making sure we're providing cross-access and keep alluding to Dan's great job of site planning, so we've got some cross-access between adjacent buildings and making sure we prioritize pedestrian access where we can. Alright. So the fourth section that we're talking about amending is related to just for the residential developments, not changing anything on that from what we have now, except noting that the multifamily structures and those at 3 units or more are going to be reviewed under the commercial requirements. But this defines things a little better than what it is in our building code right now. First floor brick requirements, it addresses what happens when we have an addition on an existing building. But the standards remain pretty much as they are in our building code right now. Now this is starting to look at our business and commercial districts. The way that our code is written now is talking about all non-residential developments. So it didn't really distinguish between commercial and industrial, and I think it's important that we do that. Just like I mentioned, most of our commercial structures are a little bit smaller. I think the standards that we have had up to this point has resulted in quality architecture. It's really the industrial uses that I'm concerned about. So we've distinguished between those, and when we roll this into the zoning code, we're gonna make that distinction. Keep the business and commercial districts separate from the industrial. We're also lumping into this one our office, our ORI district, because most of those districts are the corporate office and small office buildings or light industrial buildings. If you look at the top there, that's the way the code is written now. Again, up to 3,000 square feet, everything's 100% brick. When you get up to 40, you're only required to have 75% brick. Up to 80, 60%, and then once you go to 80,000 in a commercial building, you're only required to have 25% face brick, and that's the way it is now. Only thing we really added to that is we found, especially, the standard in the industry right now, people are using the decorative stone. So we wanted to provide a little flexibility instead of requiring all face brick, we're allowing them to consider 30%, for example, could be a decorative stone. If you think about Gas City or Gas and Wash's development, they had brick and they had some decorative stone at the base. That's what that does. Instead of making it be all brick, which is sort of pretty monotonous, it allows some flexibility and design standards for the developer. So in this table, you'll see I'm comparing what's existing, what's proposed, and what the impact is. It's not really until you get up to over 80,000 that we're getting a little less restrictive, where I'm not even requiring brick, but it does require a masonry of some sort. So it's going to have 25% brick or 25% decorative stone. These are some of the developments that have happened here in the village under the old code, so we know that it's economically feasible, and I think from an appearance and aesthetic point of view, we've gotten quality developments. The point of bringing in these slides was just to let you know where the opportunities are. We don't have a lot of undeveloped property, but there are these certain areas. I think it's going to be important that we have these new standards and these new architectural design guidelines to help guide that development. This is right out in the area where Dan was just working. You'll see that top star is right below where the new Gas and Wash will be. And then on the south, that's Wood Springs Hotel. A lot of these under PUDs, so that's where they're at now. We have a lot of opportunities out on 190 Greenway, site, you got the site in front of Panduit, around Brookside Marketplace, and, in front of the Brookside when the residences make Newsom. So we'll see some new development there, hopefully, and we're gonna, be able to maintain the standing that we've gotten up till now. About 45, I think there's a lot of opportunities out there. We've seen some interest in hotels out there. So again, having this down, having it down in our zoning ordinance, giving us some design guidelines, I think really is gonna smooth the way for, a quick review. You know, developers all just wanna know where they stand when they come in, so when we have this standard there for them, they can look at it, see what our expectations are, and move on with the review process. The biggie is the mental health center, that's an ORI. So this is just the language, in your staff report, you'll see the final ordinance I provided you, for those if you wanna take a look at that, but this is what we'll be adopting when we go on forward to the village board. The only other aspect that what really wasn't defined in the current code was you could take 15% of any facade and do some architectural treatments. And that's what this is outlining. We never said what you could do. So this gives you the materials that you could use to help, jazz up the facade a little bit. It also specifically identifies prohibited materials, which we had done that actually in the building code, but this makes it clear what is not allowed. It also provides for any addition of existing commercial buildings. So the last section that we're touching is for industrial uses. This is probably where you've seen, or not probably, it is where you're going to see most of the changes. In this table, you'll see, again, up at the top is what is existing right now. The one change too is I added another threshold, where before we just broke at 3,000, 40,000, 80,000 and above. I added another threshold over 10,000. And that was really what we found in our research of where to start to break for cost of product for the brick. So up to 3,000, things are remaining the same. The only thing that we're doing for the industrial buildings is giving them some flexibility to do some decorative stones. From 3 to 10, we're keeping the 75% requirement, so there's really not much change there, but again, providing the option of decorative stone. Now, when we go above 10,000, that's where on these larger buildings for industrial uses, we want to provide a little less restrictiveness on the brick requirement, whereas before we had a 75% face brick requirement, we're reducing that down to 50. Same option of allowing some decorative stone as an option on that. From 40 to 80, the way it exists right now is 60% face brick. That's a pretty large building. We're reducing that down to only 25% face brick. And it can be face brick or decorative stone, so it is much less restrictive. And as I mentioned before, having a definition for masonry on all of this provides for more flexibility and opportunity for the designers of these buildings. And the last section, and these are those large buildings, over 80,000 square feet. We currently are requiring 25% brick. In the new proposal, there'll be no brick required. It still is masonry, still 100% masonry under our definition, but it is no face brick on those larger buildings. Just to give you an idea where you'll start to see this happening, we don't have as many opportunities in our industrial districts as we do with commercial, but we do have some. This is out in Tinner Crossings, it's a PUD, Devan Drive. There might be a lot of new development out there, there's some other building stock out there. So, the importance again, and the whole reason we're doing this is we're trying to stay competitive with our neighbors, and we're trying to encourage more industrial development in our community, especially in the Cook County side. So that kind of concludes my presentation. I have motions written in here. As I was looking at this today, I was trying to be a little more even efficient. If you want to read your motions off the slide, you're welcome to. There's nothing wrong with the ones that are in here. I basically, rather than go into all the details of what these changes are, I'm saying, prove them unless you have some comments you want something to be changed, is as written in the statute.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Appreciate the presentation. At this time, I would ask the commissioners if they have any comments, beginning with Commissioner Gaskell.
No comments.
Commissioner Vick?
No.
Commissioner Stanton?
No, good job.
Commissioner Fielder?
Very thorough, thank you very much.
Commissioner Aitchison?
Nope.
Okay, And all I have is some commendations. This was a very, very thorough job and a lot of information you had to pull. I do like the fact that you broke the 10,001 square foot because you guys did that cost-benefit ratio of the brick and it becomes too unwieldy. So hopefully that'll entice some businesses to come and set up shop. But, and the one thing I absolutely love is that you have the in the architectural review, subpart C, identify all the building materials and their specifications. That's very good. I think it's a good way to add a little bit of control to what we see in the community. So, well done, staff. At this time, I don't see anybody in the audience, but I will ask if there's anybody in the audience willing to testify. Nobody's coming through the door, so we'll move on from that. At this time, I will ask if we can get a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Commissioner Fielder, do I hear a second?
Second.
Commissioner Aitchison, seconded. So the public hearing is closed. At this time, I'd like to request a motion from the Plan Commission regarding item 2 here. We have 5 motions as are shown on the screen.
I'll make a motion to recommend the village board amend section 2.b definitions to add in alphabetical order the definition as outlined in the November 21st staff report.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Fielder. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Commissioner Vick seconded the motion. Can I have a roll call at this time?
Stanton?
Yes.
Fielder?
Yes.
Gaskell?
Yes.
Aitchison?
Yes.
Vic?
Yes.
Chairman Gray?
Yes. Motion carries. At this time, I'd like to request another motion from the Plan Commission.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the village board amend section 3.u site plan review to include architectural review, provide architectural and site design standards as outlined in the November 21st, 2019 staff report.
Okay, Commissioner Aitchison made the motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Commissioner Gaskell seconded the motion. Could I have a roll call at this time?
Stanton?
Yes.
Fielder?
Yes.
Gaskell?
Yes.
Aitchison?
Yes.
Vic?
Yes.
Chairman Gray?
Yes. Okay, I'd like to request a third motion from the Plan Commissioners regarding this item.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the village board amend section V.C.4, elevations and faces, facades, to include masonry requirements for single-family detached, single-family attached townhomes, all single-family, semi-detached dwellings as outlined in the 11.21.2019 staff report.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Stanton. Do I hear a second at this time? Commissioner Fielder seconded the motion. At this time, can we get a roll call?
Vic?
Yes.
Aitchison?
Yes.
Gaskell?
Yes.
Fielder?
Yes.
Stanton?
Yes,
Chairman Gray?
Yes.
Some people say
I know. It was right here.
Motion carries. With that, I'd like to request another motion from the Plan Commissioners at this time.
I make a motion to recommend the village board amend section 5.c.7, general requirements, all business and commercial districts, to include masonry requirements for all commercial districts, including office and restricted industrial district and multifamily dwellings as outlined in the November 21st, 2019 staff report.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Vick. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I heard Commissioner Aitchison with the second motion. So at this time, could we get a roll call?
Stanton?
Yes.
Fielder?
Yes.
Gaskell?
Yes.
Aitchison?
Yes.
Vic?
Yes.
Chairman Gray?
Yes. So at this time, I'd like to request the final motion for this item from the Plan Commission.
I'll make a motion to recommend the village board amend section 5.c.10 site development standards for industrial uses to include masonry requirements for all industrial districts as outlined in the November 21st, 2019 staff report.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Fielder. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Commissioner Stanton seconded the motion, and Commissioner Fielder made the motion. At this time, if I could get a roll call?
Vic?
Yes.
Aitchison?
Yes.
Gaskell?
Yes.
Fielder?
Yes.
Stanton?
Yes.
Chairman Gray?
Yes. Okay, so all 5 motions passed on today, and this item will be heard by the village board on the December 3rd, 2019 meeting. With that, that closes item 2, and we'll move to the good of the order. So staff, do you have anything to present for the good of the order at this time?
Couple things, not a lot, just things that I know that we've been working on. I've been spending a lot of time in the plaza, still working hard on that, trying to punch the budget down. As you know, it gets into any project, a lot of evaluation behind it, so we're doing what we can to keep that project in the budget. The residences, Magnuson, finally, we had their submittal for their foundation, permit, hasn't been issued yet, we're still going through the review of that, so I don't even know who was on here back, only you, Tim?
I think so.
Yeah,
So,
we-
it's nice to finally get that project over the finish line. And if you're watching the work, out on South Street, that's fun to see. It's always fun, that's the rewards of the job that you do, that you get to actually see something built, so that's nice. Been nice for us too, to kind of see them. I mentioned that we've got a lot of hotel interest out on 45, and we had a submittal on that, as a dam project, so it's handling that. We're excited about it, it has a, annexation, involved with that, so that's exciting. So things are very busy, you know, like, everyone always thinks things slow down in the winter, but no, that's where everybody spends all their time getting ready for the spring, so. Dan's working on Christmas Day.
What?
I'll be a slip line bar.
Okay, well, thank you, guys. And at this time, I'll ask for any public comments. Seeing none, we'll move forward. And may I have a motion to close tonight's meeting?
Motion to close.
Motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Fielder. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.